Welcome back to People Analytics. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton. Today I have with me Katia Olivera, who is the Director of HR at TextUs. Welcome, Katia.
Hey, Lindsay. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited.
Thanks for being on the show. So here's where you get to tell us who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Okay, so awesome. So I am Katia. I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I am an HR professional. So I'm in the HR field. And so I started in HR back in 2011, 2012. So I've been in HR for about 10-ish years now. And while I knew I always wanted to work with people, I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to go into HR until I went into my first role at Zayo, where I was primarily a program manager, and then also working directly with the schools in terms of internships and recruiting. And so more on the talent acquisition side of things. And that's really where I got my first taste of a true HR function. And then over the years, I've moved away from talent acquisition and more into the strategic employee relations, change management side of things, and really more focusing on the org as a whole. And I really enjoy that piece of HR, to be quite honest with you. I really love being able to see helping managers understand their why, helping managers understand why the business is functioning the way that it is, and how we can continue to both make it work better, both from a business perspective, but then also from a people perspective. And then I think I really also just enjoy watching people grow and be able to learn more about themselves, learn more about their team members, and really have that relationship between the manager and the team continue to grow as well.
Yeah. And one thing I can relate to you is, the need to understand the why, because I'm someone who is, when I work with clients, I'm like, okay, well, did you do research about this, or what's the point, or what is the expected outcome? So I'm always, on that pragmatic side. So tell me about, the why in your relationship to that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think early on in my career, to be quite honest, I worked at an organization that didn't necessarily explain to the team why they were doing things. And it was just more of a, hey, this is what we're going to do, and more of a because I said so type of culture. Or maybe they thought implied as to why we were doing things, but we were moving so quickly, people didn't always understand why we were doing it. And so it also felt, it didn't feel authentic, basically. Then I moved into another role at continue to move in my career and move to another organization. I really started to understand there how important understanding the why was, just to culture and how the impact that it made with people at work and how they were producing their work. And so there I could see that because we explained the why, because we got down to the details and were very transparent with our financials and what those financial metrics meant, people felt more engaged with each other, with the business, and really put more of an effort in their work. And so that's something that I've carried with me throughout the years, and making sure that we slow down a little bit, right? It doesn't have to be this huge pause, but that we're always reiterating to our team members why we're doing things, and trying to explain to them the bigger picture. So, for example, we're a texting software. One of the things that we did when I came on board was we actually started implementing sending out text messages to our team. The reason for that was so that we could have our team actually see and feel how it is to be a TextUs customer. And I think people were a little surprised by that and weren't sure about it. But the more that we started to use text messaging for benefits, as reminders, as holiday reminders, for events, people actually really started liking that. And so we would constantly reiterate to them why we were doing it, and they started to see and started to have new ideas around our product and how to better interact with our customers.
That's amazing because, they are becoming the customers, but they have the added benefit of knowing how to change things to make the customer happy. So, so let's talk about creating an environment where ideas are welcome. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's really important to us at TextUs specifically. And so I think one thing that we really try to focus on is making sure that whenever we roll out a new idea, a new process, a new policy, for example, that we tell people why we're doing it. So that's the first thing. And then we give them some time before it's actually rolled out, usually a couple of days up to a week. And then we roll it out officially. And then we give them some time to really dig into the process or policy that we've rolled out. And then we'll ask for feedback. We'll ask for feedback in team meetings. We'll ask for feedback at all hands, but then we'll also ask for feedback via surveys. That is one thing that I feel like our team does a lot of is surveys, because we are still somewhat small. We're about 70 people. We still are able to get that feedback from them. And then once we get that feedback, we're very transparent about what that feedback was and what our plan is to make changes to it. And so we do these essentially regular check-ins or checkpoints with our entire team to make sure that what we're trying to accomplish is actually working and that our team still feels aligned to that new process or policy. Like it still fits within our culture. Obviously within reason, right? Like there are things that sometimes the government mandates us to do, but even then we will still continue to check in with our team members to get ideas from them, because sometimes because they're in the weeds, they actually have better ideas than me, for example, that's more strategic and higher level.
Yeah, that's just a form of communication that gives you more information, allows you to make better decisions. And, one thing I know that you enjoy about your job is you're able to dive deep into, behaviors and why people are making choices. And those surveys tell you basically the information you need. So tell me a little bit about that aspect of your job and what you enjoy about it.
Yeah, so I think that I really love being able to connect with the team and being able to understand what it is that they are trying to accomplish and how can we work best together, right? Because we're a team, but we are different types of team members. And so sometimes there could be conflicts between like engineering and HR, right, in terms of what we're trying to accomplish. But at the same time, we're on the same team. So how can we work together to make sure that we're accomplishing that end goal? I can give you an example around that for engineering specifically. Sometimes our engineering leads have a difficult time with doing the entire recruiting intake process, because it is cumbersome. Like we do ask for a lot of information up front. And it is just about communicating to them the importance of getting that information from the beginning so that once we start recruiting, we don't have to go back to the engineering manager, to the engineering team interviewers and ask them like, hey, wait, what about this? Or did you think about this? Or hey, I have this person, but I'm not quite sure. It's a more streamlined process, right? And we actually did go through a situation a couple of weeks ago, probably about 6 to 8 weeks ago now, where we had an engineering manager that, did a great job with the job description, was very detailed around it, did a great job with their recruiting intake, provided us with all of the details that we needed. They provided us with, where this role was going to go, even some of the mundane tasks that this role was going to do, how they were going to be interacting with other teams. We had the intake meeting with all of the interviewers, and it went really smoothly. Like there was great collaboration from both HR and the engineering interviewers. We were able to hire that individual within 5 weeks. So from start to finish, from the time that we opened up the role to the time that we extended the offer, it was a 5-week time frame, which is really, it's a quick turnaround, right? But the team was so decisive, and we were able to keep momentum with the candidates that it made for both a great engineering team experience, but also a great candidate experience. And it really showed how well we could work together. And so that just kind of goes back to, explaining to the engineering team why we're doing things, how can we make sure that we're working both effectively together, and then executing on that plan.
Yeah, and I'm noticing, a common thread of flexibility, the ability to, if something's not working, let's try this. Is that been, one of the key ways you've been able to be more transparent and really get to the why?
Yeah, I think that it's flexibility is a great word, but I think it's also understanding each other, right? I think it goes back to TextUs has a strong culture of being really intentional, and part of that is understanding where we each come from and why we're trying to do things a certain way to get our end result, and how can we actually be more curious about each other's perspective, and how can we work together to make it even a better experience for both parties, right? Whether it's the customer, whether it's the employees, that's one thing that we really try to focus on.
Yeah. So I know, when we spoke before, curiosity is a really, really important thing to you. And so you just brought it up now, which, triggered my memory of our conversation. So I'd like to talk about curiosity because my background is in journalism, which is, another very curious, industry as well. So how do you use your curiosity in the people space?
Yeah, I think um, that's something I just am smiling because it is a big part of who I am, and I think has made me so interested in this role and so passionate about my role within HR. But I think I use curiosity in a couple of different ways. So the first is it really truly is trying to understand the individual and not necessarily where they come from a business perspective or from a work perspective, but more so from a personal perspective. I mean, in order for us to be the best individual that we can be at work, we have to be our most authentic self, right? And that starts from before we had jobs. And so I really try to make sure that I understand why people think the way they do, behave the way they do, what is their perspective on like just life in general, essentially. Um, and it sounds deep, but it doesn't have to be that deep. It's just more an understanding of who the individual is as an individual. And then from there, I think I take it more direct when it comes to business, to be quite honest, and really trying to understand what are you trying to accomplish? Why are we trying to accomplish it now at this moment in time versus, either a couple of months ago or in the future? What is pressing right now? And that really helps me understand the business overall from each department's perspective to then be able to make the best recommendation for each department. And so I would say that I do ask a lot of direct questions that sometimes can be uncomfortable, but I do always try to address them by saying, "Hey, I'm truly just being curious about this." Like, and there is no judgment around it. It's more so, why are we doing this? Uh, and I think it's interesting because I have had leaders say that they know that there is no judgment and that I am curious about it and it is a good question, and so then that helps reinforce the questions that I have. I think that the last thing that I will say about curiosity is I think it is important for organizations and organizational leaders to be curious. And I think it really does help if in HR, if I model that, right? It helps leaders be more comfortable in asking questions, difficult questions too. It's not something that they're just like, oh, I'm the only one that's going to do it. No, it's something that's within our culture, right? And so our CEO and I talk about that a lot, our leadership team and I talk about that. Like, how can we make sure that we are asking difficult questions in a manner that, isn't attacking in any way, isn't judgmental in any way, but more so truly coming from a place of curiosity. And I think that really does go back to just being authentic, having strong relationships and trust, and being open to being vulnerable with our team members.
Yeah, and that's really great to model that behavior too, because I feel like curiosity can be interpreted as being challenged too, and it's kind of a difficult thing to balance. So how do you balance? I know you said you often preface things with "I'm just being curious." Is there another way that you balance the curiosity and try to make it not seem as confrontational, I guess?
Yeah, I think that is something that I'm still working on, to be fully transparent with you. I do try to be a little bit more playful. That is something that I just in general want to try to do in the workplace. Because outside of work, I feel like I'm really playful. So trying to bring that into the workplace a little bit more. So I do try to make it a little bit more playful, just in terms of like, oh, wait, hold on a second. I just heard this and now I'm hearing this. There's more of a disconnect. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Or more so, I also will try to say things like, help me understand this. Because then it's about me, right? It's not about you're saying, I truly am having a hard time understanding what you're trying to explain to me. Like, can you help me understand this? Um, and so using phrases like that, I will say that I use out of curiosity a lot. And I think there are team members that have definitely picked up on that and they can see that I'm starting to think and they're like, oh, I can see that. Like, I will definitely get to your question here in a second. And so with some team members, I think there is already this just organic playfulness that's happened. It is more about, trying to bring that playfulness into the conversation.
Yeah, because jobs and what we do, they're so personal. It's, hours a day, 5 days a week, sometimes more, depending on the person. So there can be a lot of feelings wrapped up in, being asked a question that, you know, is about your work, something that, you're so close with. So I really love how you're kind of bringing down those walls of like defensiveness and is like, no, this is just kind of getting to, something that will make us more successful in the long run. So have you noticed kind of those walls of defensiveness calming down when you frame it as curiosity?
I have with specific leaders, right? I think that it does take time, and each individual has their own timeline, essentially. And so I do always want to make sure that I'm reading the room appropriately too. I'm going to continue to dig into something if I can tell that the individual is feeling uncomfortable. But I have definitely felt that there is a closeness is the best way that I can explain it. That I feel with leaders or with managers that I'm engaging with as we start to build a stronger relationship and they really start to understand my curiosity and then also really understand my role within the organization and that it's not a role of, um, me trying to block them in any way. It's me trying to help them as well as making sure that I'm helping the rest of the organization too, so that we can all work together cohesively. I think a lot of times, HR gets this reputation of, I mean, it used to, it's starting to go away of, it's the people that say no, right? Or the people that you go to when you're in trouble or the people that make up all the rules, which part of it, all of that is true. But it's more so about thinking about it from a different perspective of, hey, HR is really just trying to help us be more efficient. Hey, it's helping us trying to stay legally compliant. Hey, HR is on the same team as me, and we both want to accomplish the same goal of having our employees succeed, having our company succeed.
Yeah, and that's so true, because before I started this podcast and interviewing amazing people like you, I had some HR trauma, and I'm sure there are many people like me who, viewed HR as the person that you go into their office when you got to complete paperwork or when there's an issue. And, the HR I had a relationship with, they never came to my office and asked me how I was doing. They never checked in. They took the side of the company always. And this is not the same HR that we're seeing now. These are not the guests I'm interviewing. And it's really refreshing. And I often say healing for me personally to have these conversations and recognize that no, this is about people, and I'm working, for everyone here. So what are your opinions on, the evolution that has happened and is continuing to happen?
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting question that I hadn't thought about before. But outside of work, like I'm truly like such a people person. I'm, on the Myers Briggs, I'm a very extroverted individual, and I'm a very empathetic individual. Like I feel a lot of feelings. So for me, it's been really refreshing to be able to start to see how HR is changing in the sense of being able to bring your true authentic self to the workplace, and that not being something that people are opposed to, but instead are truly welcoming with arms wide open, right? And hoping to create environments where people feel safe and feel excited about bringing in their own ideas and being able to speak about being able to speak about their ideas and how they can help create, a much better product or experience for other people. And then kind of going off of that, also enabling people to feel that true value of what it feels like to be part of a community, right? As humans, we just want to belong. We just want to make sure that we're creating value, that we're a valued individual. And so part of that in HR is helping make sure that people feel that way too, right? And I think that businesses are really starting to understand that in order to make sure that people are truly being their best at work, we have to give them rules and tasks that will make them feel fulfilled, and then we'll see the greatest, for lack of a better phrasing, I can't think of a better way, like output from them because they are so excited about what they're doing within the workplace.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I love that you use the word community, because I think about some of the, opportunities that I've had throughout my career. And my favorite ones have been, when we accomplish something as a team or something that is bigger than ourselves. And, that takes a community to accomplish.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's about what can we learn from each other, right? Like
Yeah.
that's really exciting about being at work. I know I learn so much from my team members at all times. And recently, so I have an HR coordinator on my team, and recently I've been able to see how much she's grown in her role and how her ideas have started to change. And I can tell she feels a lot more confident in vocalizing her ideas. But then I'm also always trying to reassure her that that's a really great idea that I honestly hadn't even thought about. And how great is it that we can both come up with these great ideas to make our team even better? And so that's something that's been really awesome to be able to see throughout my career as well.
Yeah. I know at the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned you love watching people grow, and that's an example. But in that example you gave, I saw, you grew as well. So do you view growth as kind of a back and forth?
Yeah, I definitely think it is a back and forth. I mean, I learn from our individual contributors as much as I learn from our executive team, to be quite honest. And I think it's just really interesting to see different perspectives because we all have different backgrounds and obviously we all have different roles within the organization. And so to be able to see it from the different perspectives is really interesting. I can think of one time I was in a debrief with our VP of account management, our director of CX, and our CEO, and I made a comment about an action that a candidate had taken and how I did not perceive that action as the best action in my perspective. Like, it just didn't rub me the right way, for lack of better phrasing. But then the VP of account management, she mentioned like, hey, this is this type of role. And that's actually exactly what I would expect from this type of role at this level, because like that's what they're going to be doing on a regular basis. And it kind of clicked for me. I was like, you're right. It's this type of role, and they are able to do this. And so the fact that they're doing this consistently throughout the interview process is actually a good thing. Versus if I had just not listened or been more closed-minded, I wouldn't have been open to that. But it's great to be able to just open your mind a little more. Through conversations.
That was such a great example. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think, everyone, no matter where you are in life or what profession you're doing, having that open-minded ability to take, what you think and maybe listen to a new idea or new facts, that's a really important skill to have.
Yeah, no, definitely. It really is. And I think it only helps you grow and just makes you feel better as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Katia, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for talking about curiosity with me. But before we wrap up, do you have anything that you would like to add or think that I missed?
No, I think that we covered it all. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast.
Yeah, it's been great. So if people want to contact you or ask a question, what's the best way they can do so?
They can definitely reach me via LinkedIn, just Katia Olivera at TextUs. Or if they would like to send me an email, I can give that email address out too. It's just Katia, Katia, at TextUs, TexTUS.com. And yeah, those are the best ways to get a hold of me.
Great. Well, if you or anyone you know is curious like Katia, email me, Lindsay at StaffGeek.com. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to StaffGeek's People Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton, and I'm always looking to interview leaders who put people first. If you or someone you know lead with a people-first mindset, please email me at lindsay@staffgeek.com. That's LINDSAY at staffgeek.com. If you want to take things a step deeper and understand your organization's true culture DNA, I encourage you to take StaffGeek's free culture assessment. Just head to staffgeek.com and click the button that says Free Culture Assessment. Thanks again for listening.